Perdóname porque no sé.
Perdonad, empezamos ahora en 2 minutos, que solucione Leticia el problema con el micro y empezamos.
Probando.
No, se te escucha con eco. Si no, de todas formas, se me ocurre una cosa, y es que empecemos como ibas a hacer tú, José Luis, la bienvenida, que hicieses la bienvenida y cuento yo si no lo de... Porque nada, nosotros simplemente vamos a contar como una introducción contando cómo vamos a hacer lo de las preguntas, que vamos a grabarlo y todo eso. Entonces, si quieres, empiezas tú con la bienvenida y luego cuento yo eso.
Vale, ¿me oís
Sí,
bien?
Leticia, sí.
Ya, he quitado Entonces...
Ah, vale.
Aquí estoy.
Pero...
Ya con los auriculares y chimpún.
De todas formas, lo hacemos así, da José Luis la bienvenida y luego cuentas tú, Leti, lo de las instrucciones y eso.
¿Qué queráis? ¿Qué
Vale.
queráis?
¿Cómo?
Pues nada, cuando quieras, José Luis.
Ya estamos en onda.
Ya estamos en ondas.
Sí.
Bueno, pues nada más, buenas tardes a todos y todas y bienvenidos a esta sesión que tiene como objetivo revisar cuáles son las normas de la nueva convocatoria para los Starting Grant. Simplemente deciros que en esta tarde pretendemos de alguna manera pues no solo informaros sobre las novedades, sino también ayudaros a preparar los primeros pasos para poder presentar un proyecto en la convocatoria de Starting Grant y que, bueno, pues como os comentarán en breve, vamos a trabajar un poco todos los conceptos de la convocatoria. I would like to thank especially to Olympic Grand Colas for his kind contribution to this session, because she is an officer of the ERCEA. This is the organization that is managing the program of the ERC. And so she will present today the main novelties of the new program. And I will like to thank her for his kindly proposal and for kindly contribution to this event. So I hope that I am not sure whether all the presentation will be in Spanish or in English, but in any case, you can ask us in both languages, Spanish or English, because we will answer your question in both languages. So this is more or less the aim of this presentation, and I would like to say that the most important issue is that if you have any question at the end of the presentation, please let us know, because I will try to answer all of them and try to solve all your questions. Thank you for coming. And so we will start the session with Leticia or Julio. Thank you.
Sigo yo. No sé. Bueno, a mí me está fallando todo hoy. ¿Lo veis en modo con las notas y todo, normal?
Sí.
Sí, se ve bien.
Vale, pues Vale, lo que ha dicho José Luis, perfectamente bien dicho, completaros, que pediros que por favor uséis la sección de preguntas y respuestas para hacernos llegar vuestras preguntas, porque las iremos respondiendo sobre la marcha, aunque os daremos espacio durante la agenda para no solo responderlas por escrito, sino también responderosla directamente. En principio estáis todos silenciados, pero bueno, si llegado, por ejemplo, en el momento de las preguntas hay alguna duda que sea más fácil aclararla directamente hablando, pues nos lo decís y os dejamos permiso para que encendáis la cámara y los micrófonos para que lo podáis hacer. Aquí hemos puesto que parte del seminario, del webinar, va a ser grabado y yo estoy pensando que en principio lo vamos a grabar todo, incluido también la parte de las preguntas. Entonces, toda la grabación, si alguien tiene algo confidencial, que no lo comparta durante la jornada de hoy. Si tenéis algo confidencial que preguntarnos, utilizar los cauces habituales, que es el email y nuestros teléfonos, pero que sepáis que toda la sesión va a ser grabada y la vamos a colgar en la sección de noticias. Luego os dejamos el enlace donde la publicaremos. Y bueno, algunas partes como ha dicho José Luis, algunas partes las haremos en inglés y otras las vamos a hacer en español. We're pretty sure that you can, even if you don't speak Spanish as well as English, we're pretty sure that you can follow our presentation, because our presentation are written in English, but our speech are in Spanish. Sorry for that but I am sure that you can follow us. And that's all from my side. A part of this is the people. Ahora estoy hablando en inglés. Estas son las personas que vamos a participar en la sesión, que os vamos a hacer las presentaciones. Además, como ya habéis visto, nos acompaña José Luis García, que es el representante en el comité de programa, representante de España en el comité de programa del ERC desde 2007. Así que tenemos la Wikipedia del ERC con nosotros, y podemos aprovechar que está él siempre para ayudarnos a responderos vuestras preguntas. Y también está mi compañero Julio Machavalo, que también es experto en el comité de programa y punto nacional de contacto. Vamos viendo sobre la marcha el tema de las preguntas y en cualquier caso vamos a dejar un espacio al final para responderlas todas. Entonces, I finish with this part. Maybe Olimpi, you can share your presentation.
Yes. So let me share. And like this. Is it working? No. Like this. Yes?
It's working.
Okay, perfect. So my part will be in English because I'm very sorry, I don't speak Spanish. So I work in the Starting Grant team. I'm Olympe. Sometimes if you email us at the functional mailbox, I may answer your questions, it's possible. So I will present some general things and the new things from 2026 calls. Before I start, if you have any questions, of course you can ask them, but maybe wait until the presentation is finished, because it's possible that your question will be answered during the presentation. And the other thing I will say, but this is in general, not just today, of course you can always have questions and it's not so easy to find the answer, but please read our documents, the ERC work program, which is the legal basis of the calls, and the information for applicants, which is really written to help applicants prepare a proposal. I know that it's like long documents, but really most of the answers are in there. So I will start. This is the overview of what I will present. So the ERC is part of Horizon Europe, which is the framework program for research of the European Union. It's part of Pillar 1, Excellent Science, together with the Maria Sklodowska-Curie grants. The budget is 16 billion over 7 years, and it's about 17% of the entire Horizon Europe budget. The ERC is special, let's say, because it has an independent scientific council with 22 members, which are scientists, including the ERC president, which is Professor Maria Leptin, and they have the full authority over the strategy and how they want to spend basically their money. And us at the ERCEA, we are in the executive agency, so we implement what the strategy decided by the scientific council, and we manage the operations. The ERC's mission is to encourage the highest quality researchers through competitive funding and to support investigator-driven frontier research across all fields. It's completely bottom-up. So the only criterion for judging the proposal is scientific excellence. They are evaluated based on this. It's support to individual scientists, except for the synergy grant, but for starting and consolidator, it's 1% applying. It also means that this person can move the grant if they wish to another host institution. There are no predetermined subjects. It's really anything that you find interesting. And it's all fields of science, life science, physics and engineering, humanities, social sciences, doesn't matter. And it's evaluated by international peer review. So why should you apply? You can work on research of your choice. So the ERC doesn't impose a scope or anything like this. You can have the team of your choice. You can have financial autonomy for 5 years. It can help you negotiate good working conditions with your host institution and attract collaborators that are also very good. And you can move the grant, as I was saying, to any place in Europe during the grant. If you decide to go to another university, another country within the EU, you can move and you take your grant with you. And you can get also additional funding. So these are the main ERC funding schemes. So starting grants, which is for the more junior principal investigator that are starting their group, which is mostly, I think, what we will talk about today. Consolidator grants, advanced grant, more senior researchers, synergy grants, it's for 2 to 4 principal investigators together, and proof of concept, which is a special grant that is only for people who already have one of the main grants. So as I was saying, excellence is the sole evaluation criterion. So both the excellence of the research project and the excellence of the principal investigator. The main focus for the panel is on the excellence of the research project, but the capacity of the principal investigator to actually do the research project is, of course, also taken into consideration. So now a subject which I think is interesting for starting and consolidator applicants, so eligibility. Before you start preparing your proposal or while you are preparing your proposal, make sure you are applying to the call that you are eligible for. So for the calculation of the eligibility window, it's always based on the 1st of January of the year of the call. So for Starting Grant 2026, you have to have defended your PhD between 1st January 2019 and 31st December 2023. And for COG 2026, 1st January 2014 to 31st December 2018. You can have extension, I will go over it later, for certain cases of the eligibility window. We often see that people panic about not being in the eligibility window. If you're not eligible for starting, you are, of course, eligible for COG. You're never out of all calls. I mean, it's except if you have submission restrictions. So if you previously applied to an ERC call and you got at step 1 a C or a B, there are resubmission restrictions. These you can find in the work program that I was telling you about and the information for applicants. There is a nice table that recaps everything. Another eligibility criteria is the time commitment on the project. You have to spend 50% of your time for starting and 40% of your time for COG on your ERC project. And for both calls, you have to spend 50% of your working time in an EU member state or associated country. So since the work program 2023, there has been a change to the eligibility reference date. It's now the date of the first successful defense. The idea of the Scientific Council was to reflect more the real academic age instead of the administrative age of the PI, because we know that in some countries between the defense and the award, there can be few years, maybe not few years, but 1 or 2 years. So it was to put an end to the confusion about award date according to national rules. It's easier with defense. Everyone has to defend, or most countries defend their PhD. Most of the PhD certificates already include the defense date. If it's not included, and when we say included, we say really like it should be explicitly written, because sometimes applicants say, no, but this date on the certificate is my defense date, but we have to be able to understand it based on the document. So if you don't have it, please ask for a written confirmation from the awarding institution. If you don't have it on the certificate, but you have it in a transcript of records, this could also be fine. Then, as I was saying, for the eligibility window, there are circumstances that can give you an extension. So it's maternity leave, paternity or parental leave, long-term illness, either you or a close family member, national service, disability, clinical training. This is usually for medical doctors, but major disaster. COVID-19 does not enter in major disaster. We get often asked this question. It's not major disaster, it's like an earthquake. COVID-19 is not in it. And for seeking asylum, and from 2026, we have a new circumstance, which is for victims of any kind of violence, including gender-based violence. And this you can find more information also in the work program and in the information for applicants. So now we'll go over the submission evaluation process. So first, please make sure you note the deadline somewhere. So for starting grant, it's 14 October 2025. For consolidator, it will be 13 January 2026. It's not a lot of people, but every year we have few people who really wait until the last minute, and sometimes just you click 1 minute or 30 seconds too late on the submit button and you're out. And there's no exception. If you haven't submitted before the deadline, we cannot include your proposal. And you can submit already now, let's say for the starting grant call, it's open, and then you can resubmit as many times as you want the same proposal doing modifications. So you can already have one version in it, then you modify, you resubmit, and it will be the newest version, but at least you're sure you have something. So that's our advice, to not wait until the last minute. So something else that is new in 2026 is additional funding. So for all its standard grants, the ERC has always offered additional funding. So for example, starting grant is 1.5 million, the maximum that you can ask. And then you can ask for additional funding of up to 1 million. It used to be that you had to ask in defined subcategories. Now it's for anything. It has to be justified based on your project, but there are no categories anymore. And it should still be in the budget table. No? And then for researchers that are moving from outside of the EU or associated country to take up their ERC grant, instead of asking for 1 million, they can ask for 2 million because of the cost associated with moving their lab to Europe. Again, also for moving from outside Europe to Europe, there's no categories. If you look at the work program, you will see in brackets, there are still the categories that we used to have. So major equipment, access to large facilities, major experimental and fieldwork costs. These are examples. It's just to give you the kind of additional funding you can ask, but it's not a limit. Another big change this year is the new structure of the scientific proposal. So what used to be called the I don't remember what it was called. Okay, now the part 1 is the scientific proposal part 1, and it's max 5 pages. This is as before, it hasn't changed, but the content has changed. So it should describe the overall idea of the proposed research project, the current state of knowledge, objectives of the project, overall approach, research strategy to reach the goals of the project. And now a more major change, but already part 1 is not exactly the same. It's the same number of pages, but pay attention, the content should be different. And scientific proposal part 2, so this is Part 1 is evaluated at step 1 and part 2 at step 2 together with part 1. It's max 7 pages. So this is much shorter than it used to be. It used to be 14 pages. And again, the content is very different. It should describe the implementation in detail, the research methodology, work plan, risk assessment, etc. So again, at step 1, the panel is only able to have access to part 1 of the scientific proposal. So you have to make sure that the main idea is really in it. And there should not be so much repetition between part 1 and part 2, because at step 2, both are evaluated together. And just one last thing on this. We advise you to look at the work program, the information for applicants, and also once you start a proposal on the funding and tenders portal, you can download the templates, and there you can see there is also a little bit of help text to help you structure it. The CV and track record, this is not new from this year, but it's still relatively new, let's say. So now there's not anymore this very rigid format that you have to follow. There is still like personal details, education, employment, and then it's research achievements and peer recognition. And you can provide a short factual narrative. So it's more of a narrative CV so that the evaluators can have a more global view of your research career. And you have to list up to 10 outputs, research outputs, and demonstrating how it advanced the field and putting an emphasis on more recent achievements and also peer recognition, prize, fellowship, etc. You can also put in the CV and track record additional information that may be relevant to your career. So for example, for COVID-19, which you cannot get an extension of eligibility, but you can mention it in this additional information, career breaks, diverse career paths, because a lot of people were affected by this event. Other things you can put, it's up to you, and other contributions that you think are relevant for the research community. So then the proposal structure. So as I was, the proposal is composed of part A, which is the online administrative form that you have to fill out in the funding and tender portal. Again, don't wait until the last minute because there are a lot of things to fill out. Some things are mandatory. If they are not filled in, you will not be able to submit. And you don't want to realize that you forgot something or that you cannot find how to fill out a field at the last minute. And in part A, there is also the budget and resources that are evaluated at step 2. So it's the budget table and the text that go with it. Make sure that you put everything in the budget table, including additional funding. And in the text, really justify why you are asking for this budget. And then the part B, which is the scientific proposal. So part B1, it's part 1 of the scientific proposal and the CV and track record. And part B2, it's part 2 of the scientific proposal and the funding ID. The funding ID is not evaluated, but it's necessary to make sure that there is no double funding or things like this. And then the host institution letter, you have to have this, and your PhD certificate. And then if you're requesting an extension or you have ethical issues in your proposal, make sure you upload them and make sure that you use the templates from this year that you find that you download from the system so that you have the latest template and you don't accidentally use an old one. So then the panel structure, there are 28 panels, 11 in physics and engineering, 9 in life science, and 8 in social sciences and humanities. I said at the beginning that the ERC is bottom-up. It's completely bottom-up, but to make it easier, let's say, for the evaluation and for applicants, there is 28 panels that you can choose from so that you're in the right, let's say, place to be evaluated. It's not a complete scientific classification. It's not exhaustive. You try to choose the panel that is closest to what you're doing. It doesn't set priorities. It's just to make it easier to group proposals together, but it's not, you don't have to follow this panel because you think that means the ERC wants to see this. No, everything is welcome. You can flag a secondary review panel when you're preparing your proposal if you believe that your proposal is in between or needs the expertise from both panels. Make sure you justify why it's cross-panel in your Part B1. And if needed, reviewers from Part B1 from both panels that you mentioned will be needed. And the ERC budget is allocated based on demand per scientific panel. So the success rate is the same for all panels. Sometimes at the end of the evaluation, when you see the results, you will see 10 grants for one panel and 5 for another. It doesn't mean the success rate is not the same. It's the same success rate, but one panel had a lot more proposals and the other less. But there's no need to pick a panel based on what you think is the best success rate. That's not, it won't change anything. So really choose based on your proposal and what matches the best. So here you see the different domains and the panel structure. This you can find also in the work program and in the information for applicants. Typically per panel, there is between 14 and 20, let's say, panel members. There is one panel chair, which is chairing the panel. And there is always ERCEA staff that is in the room with the panel to make sure that the rules and everything are thought about. The aim of all of these panels and domain is to have the maximum coverage of the scientific fields, but of course it's not 100%. And the nomination is done by the Scientific Council. So the Scientific Council nominates experts in each field for panels. And they can come from anywhere in the world, there's no limit. So the evaluation process. So first at step 1, panel members will do a remote assessment of the part 1 of the scientific proposal and the CV and track record, which together form part B1. Then they will meet. They meet in Brussels. They come from all over the world. And then some proposals will be rejected. You can either have a score of A, not invited, B and C. A means it's of excellent quality, but due to constraints, there is only a certain number of proposals, 44, that can be invited to step 2. So if a panel reaches the 44 and there are still proposals that they think should have been invited to interview if they had had enough space, then you get the score A, not invited, and you don't have resubmission restrictions. B is of high quality, but not sufficient to pass to step 2. There, you will have a resubmission restriction of 1 year, so you cannot apply next call. And C is not of sufficient quality. This, you will have 2 years that you cannot apply. This is meant to give the applicant more time to rework their proposal. And then, of course, proposals are retained. They go to step 2, which is the score A invited. So at step 2, it's again a remote assessment by panel members, but also by remote reviewers of the full proposal. So part B1, part B2, the resources. Then they meet again and they have an interview. The candidate, the applicant, is not in person. The interview is remote. And then either the proposal is A, funded if within the available budget. So at step 2, you can be A, funded, but there is no budget, so you will not be funded by the ERC, but the quality would have been good enough if we had a limited budget. Or score B, rejected, but no resubmission restrictions if you pass to step 2. And in all of those cases, no matter what, the applicants will get feedback from the reviewers. So when you prepare your proposal, please make sure that you keep in mind that at step 1, panel members will only see part 1 of the scientific proposal. It forms the basis for the panel's decision whether they want to see your proposal in step 2. So everything essential should be in part 1. You cannot put some very important things in part 2 and hope that you make it. It's not a very good strategy. And then in step 2, part 1 and part 2, as well as the budget and resources, are evaluated together by the panel members and remote referees. So part 2, as I was saying, should be a detailed explanation of the project implementation, methodology, mitigating measure, etc. Make sure you don't, now you will only have 7 pages anyway, so I think repetition would be anyway not great, but try not to repeat part 1 and part 2, because once they have access to part 2, they will also still have part 1. So it's not needed to repeat anything. And make sure that you justify also the requested budget and resources, especially additional funding. The panels are the ones that look at the budget, and they have to make sure that the requested budget is reasonable and well justified compared to the proposed work. If you want to have more information, in the work program, you can find the evaluation questions that the experts have to answer when they're reading the proposals. So what are the evaluation questions that they ask themselves when they're evaluating whether a proposal is good enough to pass to step 1 or to be funded? And I think when you're writing a proposal, it's good to have in mind the question that the experts will be asking. Then some tips and tricks. So the budget, as I was saying, is distributed among the panels as a function of demand. Success rate is equal amongst all panels. No need to pick based on the impression that a panel will be a better success rate. That's not true. The panel descriptors are just to streamline the process, but any topic or field is welcome. You don't have to feel caged in. The host institution is not an evaluation criterion. As I said at the beginning, you can move your grant, take your grant with you and go to another host institution in another country, in the EU or associated countries. So of course, you're not judged on it because you could move it at any time. So it's not an evaluation criterion. Your proposal can be up to 5 years, but it can also be less. If you have a proposal that only needs 3 years, that's fine. The only thing is, of course, your budget has to be reduced pro rata, but otherwise it's not a problem. And you don't need to include unnecessary partners or collaborators. It's not a consortium grant, it's really for the principal investigator. Of course, you will need a team and you can, you will describe your team, but you don't need to have a lot of partners or things like this. And the publication record is not decisive in selection decisions. And the success rate is not linked to academic age. I will show you in the next slide. So here you can see the number of submissions by year since PhD. And we see that both in starting and in COG, people tend to wait until the almost last year that they are eligible. So 6 years post-PhD and 11 for COG before they apply. But in reality, I will show you the next slide. If you look at the success rate, so the orange line, it's pretty flat across. Of course, there are more funded proposals in those years because there are more applicants, but the success rate, the orange line, is kind of flat. In fact, if you look for starting and even for COG, 5 years has a better success rate than 6 years post-PhD. So don't wait until the last year that you're eligible because you think you will have better chances. We don't see this in our data. And in fact, if you apply before, even if you don't get it, you will get feedback, which is useful to try again. And then if you tried in the last year of your eligibility, you cannot try again for the same grant. You will have to move to the next one, and it's a different pool of applicants. So our advice is really, once you are ready, once you have an idea, apply. Don't wait. Of course, writing a proposal is very hard and it takes time. Don't wait until the last minute and make sure you take your time and, you know, rewrite as many times as possible. In this vein, you can, of course, have proofreaders or secondary reads by friend, colleague, family member. Make sure that you show it to other people to get their opinion, to see if there are things that are maybe not clear. Once again, make sure you at least submit something before the deadline, a bit before the deadline, not last minute, because it's a lot of work and it's very frustrating not to be taken into account for the evaluation because of 2 minutes. And we've seen it happen. And as I was saying, you can submit a proposal and then you can keep revising it and submitting again. So it's really, there's no reason not to do it. So as I said quite a few times, I think, make sure you look at the call documents, the work program, the information for applicants, and the guide for peer reviewers. The guide for peer reviewers is, of course, for the evaluators, but it can give you an idea also. Make sure you register early on the funding and tender portal. You have to put your proposal in there. You have to fill out all the administrative forms. It takes some time. Better to do it early. Have all your documentation ready. You can look at funded projects in your field. There is a search tool on our ERC website. You can look at testimonials and tutorials. This you can all find on our website. There's also this new ERC class videos that are staff from the ERCEA giving you tips and tricks on how to prepare a proposal. If you have any questions, you can contact us. Also for this, don't wait until last minute because we will get a lot of questions. And you can find in the contacts page of the website our email address. You can also, of course, ask your NCPs. They also have a lot of information and they give good advice. And make sure to get the written consent of your collaborators before the submission deadline. A simple email is fine and you don't need to give it to us, but you may be asked later on and you should have it ready. And the final messages is, as I was saying, don't wait. Don't tell yourself that you will not be selected or that you should wait a bit more, or just once you feel ready, go for it. I mean, at best, you will anyway get some feedback. I mean, it's always valuable. Be ambitious, explain your project's high scientific impact if you reach your aims, and provide evidence that you can do it. Consider the balance between addressing generalists and specialists and the difference between part 1 and part 2 of the scientific proposal. And if you fail, try again. We have seen that resubmissions have higher success rate than first-time submissions, about 1.5 times higher. Then I just show you the success rate by country of host institution. So Spain is somewhere in the middle, let's say. And the same for the number of ERC-funded projects by country of host institution. Spain has about 850 until 2024. Now it's going to be more. And voila. Thank you.